All right, we are live. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I see folks filtering into the room. We're going to give it about 30 seconds for people to get their Zoom up and running and get logged in. Yuka, are you going to play that music?
Which music you would like this time?
Whatever's not copyrighted. So I don't know. Happy birthday. I'm not sure.
My son was supposed to have his piano lessons right now,
Oh,
but they were actually canceled, so that's why we can't hear that. Sorry.
oh, missed opportunity. All
I
right.
know.
Well, gosh, I see we've got about 20 people in the room and more are filtering in. So I want to be respectful of time. We have a lot of amazing panelists who have given of their time to join us today and give us the scoop on what it's like to be an EV owner. So I think I'm going to get us started. So welcome everyone to EV Exclusive. My name is Jo Olson. I am the Senior Communications and Engagement Manager at Fresh Energy. Fresh Energy is a Minnesota-based clean energy nonprofit, and we are co-hosting today's event with Yuka Kukkonen at Shift to Electric. So a few housekeeping things before we get started. We will be taking questions, probably a lot of questions at the end of the webinar. So please use that Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. You can use chat to chat your questions, but I think the Q&A is better. You can see the questions that other people submit and upvote them, so they kind of climb up the screen. And that's the main thing I'll be looking at when we get to the Q&A. So I'd go that route if I were you. Before we dive into the content, I have a call to action for everyone, because if you're on this call, you care about EVs and you care about EV infrastructure and adoption here in Minnesota. And I am here to give you a reminder and let you know that Clean Cars Minnesota still needs your help. And I'm sure that a lot of you on the call today submitted a comment through the rulemaking process hosted by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, which is still underway. I think we're expecting a decision the first week in May, like first or second week in May. So we'll have an update on that soon. But in the meantime, the powers that be at the legislature are making some trouble for Clean Cars Minnesota, and they're actually working to uh, undermine what the MPCA is trying to do with clean cars. There's a lot of information about this on the website, but ultimately, we're asking that everyone use our action alert tool at fresh-energy.org/take action to take like 30 seconds and tell your legislator to oppose Senate File 450, which has some not great things in it for PCA and clean cars. So I'll put that in the chat box once I'm done talking. But one thing to do before you go to bed tonight or before you have dinner. And then I want to invite you to register for Fresh Energy's summer webinar series. It's a free 4-part series with some pretty cool guests. We're going to be talking about how district scale heat and power can achieve carbon reductions and union jobs. We'll talk about the workforce of the future and how we can ensure access to jobs in clean energy here in Minnesota, and then also what authentic community engagement looks like. So register for that one. And now the main show. Those are my plugs. So thanks for hanging out through that. So I want to introduce our guest speakers. But first, I want to say hello and welcome to Yuka Kukkonen, the Chief Education Officer at Shift to Electric. Yuka also works really closely with Fresh Energy as an EV consultant. And then we've just got a fantastic lineup of panelists today. You're going to hear from Brian and Karen Anderson, Michael Barefoot, Heather Huffman, Jody Slick, and Lisa Thurston. So I'll represent a really wide range of EVs and I'll use them super differently. So I think with that, this is what we're going to talk about. It's a lot of stuff. It includes market trends, charging 101. We'll hear 5 minutes from each panelist and then we'll get to your questions. But first, this is my reminder to send a poll to you. So you're going to get a poll popping up on your screen that asks you 2 questions, and I'll share the results after. But have you driven an electric vehicle? And then the second question, which of the following EV advantages interest you the most? So go ahead and submit your answers there. And that will help us kind of guide the conversation, let Yucca know the big questions that he needs to address during his brief 10-minute presentation coming up here. And then I see, oh, a bunch of you are voting. I'm going to leave it open. And while I leave that open, Yucca, do you want to take over from here? I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to you.
Okay, I can start that. Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
So I'll just share my screen here, but I won't be starting my presentation before you have gone through the poll, so we're fine with
Well, I'm going to end the polling now and share the results. And it looks like we've got a nice mix of people who own EVs and folks who don't. A lot of people have test driven. And then the environmental impact is one of the key reasons folks are here today, which is pretty awesome. So lots of other good reasons to buy an EV, but apparently no one's buying them for preheating and faster heating. So you could cut that part of your presentation.
That's a missed opportunity here. Totally missed opportunity. I maybe I should concentrate on that area because it's not clear for people why they should choose that option.
Oh,
anyway.
Well, then that's what we're going to talk about for the next 30 minutes, huh?
Yep, that's where we go. All right. I'll probably tread lightly on that one. But good evening, everyone. My name is Yucca Kukkonen, and as said, I coordinate the Minnesota EV Owners Group. And our panelists today are members of our group. We have been existing since 2012, and we have grown to become one of the biggest and most active regional EV owners groups in the US. So join us. Even if you don't have EV, you can still become a member just by joining our Facebook page and our mailing list. And you can ask questions from our members then too when you're really looking at your EV if you don't own one. So you can find us at mnevowners.org, and we are a chapter of National Electric Auto Association. And I'm hoping that this year we'll get to do actually more in-person events when the summer starts. That would be great because last year we couldn't, and those are always fun events to do. All right. Next, let's talk about what makes EVs great and possible. I'm an automotive engineer by training. I used to work for Ford Motor Company, and I've been actually technical trainer. And so I know internal combustion engine in and out, which nowadays is totally useless information for me. But here's a picture of internal combustion engine. You know that it's not very simple machine. We have used it for 100 years. We are trying to capture the energy that is in gasoline in chemical form and transform it into mechanical form so that we can get propulsion out of it. And we are doing this all by using small explosions. So you know that it's not very efficient way to do it. That's why internal combustion engines are 10 to 20 or 15 to 25% efficient. So we're losing a lot of energy, most of it as heat when the engine is running. And someone has actually said that internal combustion engines are great heaters, and they provide a little bit of propulsion power for us too, which is, I think, very well described what internal combustion engines are. So that is a challenge with the internal combustion engine cars. When you compare this to electric motors, you can see a totally different picture. Housing, stator, and rotor, the only moving part in modern electric vehicle motor is the rotor. And that means that this mean machine is actually extremely efficient. It's 85 to 95% efficient. And it's also more powerful than internal combustion engines. So this is the reason why electric cars will take over the internal combustion engine. Internal combustion engine does not have chance in the long run. That's very clear. And again, I look at this from technology perspective, and that's when I started to work with electric cars, when I realized that this is going to happen, and we're starting to see that happening. So let's look at the market developments a little bit. In the market, EV sales both in US and Europe used to be pretty similar for years, and you would think that Europeans would be more enlightened, but it doesn't seem to be so. So don't despair on that one. They were not doing any better than we were in the past, but now in 2019 and 2020, they actually, the sales in Europe has really taken off. And the reason for that is that European Union set up the tighter emission standards that required all auto manufacturers to provide EVs to the market. And when they started doing that, market responded by saying, yes, we want this, and that's when the sales took off. So let's look at the numbers. So last year, US light duty sales were down 14.4% overall in the US because of the pandemic. The only major manufacturer that actually increased their sales considerably was Tesla, and they sold 20% more vehicles, and Tesla sells only electric cars. So I think that's a very good trend number for us. Tesla's market share of US EV sales was actually 66%. So they are really eating many manufacturers' lunches right now. EV market share in Europe in 2019 was 3.3%. Last year, 10.2%. So it tripled last year, and that we can see on the graph on the left. And as I said, the reason for it was better availability of the vehicles. Here in the US, we have theoretically 50 vehicles available on US market overall, the EVs. In real life, unfortunately, those are not well available at all states, at all dealers. So I would say number is close to 15 to 20 that are well available everywhere. And the rest of them might be available in a paper. Compare this to the Europe, and you can see they have 170 models last year available. And that makes the difference. When people start to have options that they can choose from, that's what's going to happen, and this is the thing. In Germany, in January, actually that should be this year, 22% EV market share, and Germany is very conservative car market, so that's very promising to see. EV market share in Norway last year 75%, last month 85%. So they are going really fast right now. And European auto industry that still a few years ago was saying that I don't know if there's demand, I don't know if people are interested in EVs, now realized last year that yes, there is demand, and the market share, they are expecting now that the market share in Europe 25 is 40%. So the change will happen fast, and we can see the same kind of trend lines in US too. When we get the same number of models available in our market, we will see same kind of growth. There's no question about it. Demand surveys at the moment show us that 30% of the people are interested in buying EVs as their next car. That is 100 million people in the US. So if that's not demand, what is? All right, industry perspective, industry is seeing this. This lady here is Mary Barra. She's a CEO of General Motors, and she's telling us our electric future is now. GM said that they will offer 30 all-electric models globally and 40% of companies' US models as battery electric vehicles by 2025. And they have pledged to eliminate tailpipe emissions from new light-duty vehicles by 2035. Ford Europe has said that 100% of their passenger vehicles will be zero emissions capable 2026, and by 2030, all electric. We are expecting Ford to announce their targets for US sometime next month. So keep checking that. And Norway is planning to phase out their sales of all new fossil fuel vehicles by 2025. Jaguar is switching to all electric by 2025. And Volvo CEO Håkan Samuelsson said, I would be surprised if we wouldn't deliver only electric cars from 2030 onwards. And that was in January when he said that, and they did announce it in February then. And Deborah Wall, Chief Marketing Officer for GM, has said that there are moments in history when everything changes, inflection points. We believe such a point is upon us for the mass adoption of electric vehicles. And why all of this is happening right now, in addition to the drivetrain technologies, the battery technology has improved really fast, and the price of the cars have come down. So manufacturers can make profit with EVs, and that's why this is also happening. All right, in Minnesota, Department of Transportation provides this kind of electric vehicle dashboard, so go check it out sometimes. But it shows us that we have over 1,000 public charging stations, and in September vehicles we had over 14,000 at that time. February we have 1,100 charging points, so 10% increase in that time frame. But the vehicles have registration has increased to 18,748. So really fast developments there. Here we can see which makers have EVs registered here, and Tesla is clear leader even in September there. Chevrolet second, Nissan, Ford, and so forth. But you look at February numbers, and Tesla actually increased their sales by 2,500. So it was really big increase there, and Chevrolet, Nissan, Ford, others following. All right, and you can find all of our EVs that are available here in Midwest from our evinfolist.com. So just go to evinfolist.com. You can download this list on PDF format, and it provides you all the information you need to know about these cars. Then a couple of words about charging. We have to remember that charging happens at home, if that's possible. So based on the surveys, 85% of the charging happens at home when you ask from owners. If workplace charging is available, that's used too, but public charging is only used about 5% times. So it's much less than what you would think about it. Originally, when people think about EVs, they think, well, we need a lot of public charging stations. And that's not necessarily true. If you have a good home charging setup in your garage, you'll be fine. My wife has driven 8.5 years. She has never used public charging station. And I use public charging station only if I do any long trips. And last time I used this month once, and then before that was July. So not very often. And then talking about how to charge an EV, and our panelists will share what this looks like in their garages. But just quickly showing, every car comes with the level 1 cord set. So this one has a J1772 plug head that works for all cars. And then the other end is just normal household outlet that you can plug into any normal 120 outlet. So if you have an outlet in your garage, you can start driving electric. That's fine. Many people use this for years. We're just limited by how much power we can pull out of that outlet. So this works well if you drive 30 miles or less in a day. If you drive more than that, then I'd recommend installing level 2 charging station. And you will see some examples of this from our panelist here. The one on the left there, the white one, is a good example of home charging station. They cost about $500 to $600, and installation is very simple, 3-wire, 240 volt setup there. Every electrician can do that. And then the fastest way is to charge is use the DC fast charging stations that are on driving corridors, highway corridors, usually by restaurants and other places where you can spend some time while you're waiting for your cars to charge, or fuel yourself, like I would like to say. Right now, people usually use these for 30 to 40 minutes, but we're starting to see these going in a higher power. So the charging times are dropping to 20 to 30 minutes, and we can even expect faster charging times coming up very soon here in the future. So those are the basics of charging. I will let our panelists continue here to share how they drive and how they charge their cars.
Thank you, Yucca. And I want to give a special thank you to all of our panelists who are in their garages, who planned ahead to set up like their computers and get lawn chairs out by their cars. I just think that makes this experience that much more fun. So Lisa, if you're up for it, I would love for you to introduce us to yourself and your driving habits, I guess. So take it away.
Well, thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel again. I have a Kia Niro 2019 PHEV. It gets 26 electric miles and then switches over to gasoline. And I typically always use E15 when I'm filling up with gasoline, which isn't very often at all. We are a one-car household, and we did not expect to ever own an electric vehicle. I live less than 3 miles from my work, and my husband bikes half the year or most of the year, and so we ride the bus when we're not car sharing. So we didn't think that the vehicle would be an option, but when we unexpectedly, our car Chevy HHR died, and at the end of December, and we were in the place where we had to buy a vehicle very quickly, and And I was looking for more flex fuel vehicles, which I'd had before, and all of them are really big SUVs or a small sedan. So we do a lot of camping and paddleboarding and kayaking. So we wanted just somewhere in the middle here. So I had pulled out my list that you had been presenting for many years here, and looked at my mileage and my vehicles, what I needed, my price range, and I came up with the Kia Niro PHEV. So I use level 1 charging here at home, and it works great. I do use a lot of public charging, and I've kind of changed my habits that when I'm running around town, since I just have 26 electric miles, running a bunch of errands to the grocery store and so forth, I typically do use up those miles. And so then I'll stop when I'm grocery shopping, I go to Hy-Vee where I know there's charging, or when we go to parks now, we pick the parks that have public charging too. So I'm one of the few that probably does use public charging more. Like I said, we use it for camping and running errands, just typical. Most people don't even realize we have a flex fuel vehicle, an electric vehicle, until we're backing out of their driveway and it's all silent. So that's definitely one of my favorite things about the vehicle. And then I just have a simple charger that came with the vehicle, level 1 charging, that I take when I travel to my dad's in Wisconsin, and I plug into his garage. And it's just a simple cord with the base here. And we did get an upgrade to the system this year when they had an upgrade, just a little casing around it, but no changes or problems. And then like you said, it's just a level 1 regular 120 outlet. So let me know if you have any questions, and I'll pass it on to the next person.
Perfect. Thank you, Lisa. And now I think we get 2 for 1 with this one. We're going to turn it over to Brian and Karen. Take it away.
Hello. All right, I'll go first. I'll do the technical stuff. We have 2 EVs. Unlike Lisa's, which is a plug-in hybrid PHEV, these are both battery electric, or BEVs. To my left here is a Tesla Model Y, and behind Karen is her Chevy Bolt. I'll let her talk about what she loves about it. But just briefly, this one, I know, get the common questions out of the way. Well, actually, how we got started, we put solar panels on the house 5 years ago, and a couple of months later, I thought, why am I not using this power to drive? So I leased a BMW i3, and then later leased a different Chevy Bolt, and then a Tesla Model 3. So these are actually our 4th and 5th EVs, and now we're 100% electric. The Tesla goes about 320 miles on a charge. The Chevy Bolt goes about 260. Those are EPA ratings. And mostly we just charge at home, and I'll show you our charger after Karen talks. But that's the case for most people. The Tesla is definitely our road trip car that has the nationwide fast charging network. That's the best right now, but fast chargers for all other cars like the Bolt are being built quickly. So I think that difference is going to disappear in the near term.
My Chevy Bolt here is the pretty blue thing. And I got it a year ago because I really missed the Bolt that Brian was leasing before he got his Tesla. He had to turn it back in because the lease ended. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I really like that car. And I'm not even a car person. So for me, it's so simple to drive. It just feels safe. I love the feel of it. It's quiet, it's clean. So I got my Bolt a year ago and am loving it. It's so easy. I never have to think about it. I just drive it around town, come home, plug it in the garage. I don't have to plan 5 or 10 extra minutes to get gas. I don't have to think about oil changes. I don't, all of that stuff is by the wayside, and I love it. And tomorrow I've got sort of a little road trip. I'm going about 200 miles round trip tomorrow. So rather than have kind of range anxiety as I get home and get close to, my round trip and get close to that 200 some miles. I'm going south of Rochester from Plymouth. So Brian called the Chevy dealer down there, and just down the road from my friend's house is the Chevy dealer. And they said, sure, plug in here. So I'm going to plug in for free and just charge while I'm there, and then have a full battery as I head home. So it's just very easy. And unlike Brian, I don't get into all the, kilowatts per hour, this and that. I just don't even think about it. I just bring it home, plug it in. So
With this
that's
thing right here.
yeah.
So
So
I'll
that's
quickly,
my spiel.
Thank you, Karen. I'm gonna, so it's kind of, I got this thing hanging from the ceiling. We'll pull it down and then the charge port for the bolt is right there. But where things plug in is right here. So we have, this is the Tesla charger, and the bolt charger is plugged in. So I've got two 240 volt outlets. So Yucca mentioned level 2. These chargers are both capable of level 2 charging. And here's the one for the bolt. The neat thing about this is that it is portable. You can see it's just hanging on the wall here. So, and the type of plug that these use is a standard plug that is used like for an electric range. And it's also used in RV parks. So this is the same plug that a big RV would plug in that has a large air conditioner. So these plugs are everywhere. And a lot of people in the early days of EVs actually charged at RV parks to get across the country. It's not as fast as the level 3 DC fast charging, but it's a lot faster than the 110 volt outlet. So it's kind of intermediate, and you can fill up both of these cars overnight, even if they're completely empty when you get home. So yeah.
Oh, and I should have made it clear too that, of course, along the way on my day trip tomorrow, there are plenty of places I could stop and charge. But rather than taking 20 minutes or whatever, I just thought, oh, I'll plug it in while I'm, at my destination. So,
and that's
anyway,
that's the convenience. Rather than thinking of it as an inconvenience to find a charging station, you think of it as, oh, I'm charging my car while I'm doing something else. What you don't ever have to do is go to the gas station, or at least with a full battery electric. So that actually makes it more convenient in our experience. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. I think we're going to pass the mic over to Jody. Jody, you ready for us?
Yep. So I have a 2013 Nissan Leaf that I have had for less than a year now. Got it used. I'm kind of the opposite, perhaps, of 5 EVs. I'm the type of person that really hates investing in vehicles. I get growly about having to maintain vehicles. I don't like a car payment. I basically just want a car that will get me from point A to point B consistently, so I don't ever have to worry about, not being able to be where I need to be. And then I just am more than happy to run something into the ground. And so I've wanted to get a full electric vehicle. I previously had a 2007 Toyota Prius, which I was just going to run into the ground until, eventually it was time to get just a plug-in. We're going to be building a house, and so eventually I will have solar panels and be able to charge from that. But last year, middle of the pandemic, I'm sitting in my backyard and just saw posted on Facebook. One of my friends was posting a used EV, so that was great. I trusted that person, and then I found out that actually another person that I trusted was the one who was actually selling it. And that person said, okay, well, what's your use case? And in the case of the Leaf, it doesn't have the range that, for example, Brian and Karen's car would have, maybe about 80 miles or so. And in the end, I was able to basically change in a Prius, get a vehicle that was 6 years newer and 105,000 miles less. And kind of the net exchange there was about $2,500. And so for my particular use case, I drive from my house to the office and back, probably about 15 miles a day, up in Duluth. If I need to run on top of the hill or run up the North Shore a little bit, I can do that. I also find that I don't really pay attention to vehicles. Like when I got my Prius, it had a backup camera, and I had my Prius for 14 years, and I'm still not used to looking at a backup camera. And so the biggest, I guess, conversion that I've had on the electric or the plug-in side is I get home and generally I'm talking to my sister on the phone as I drive into the garage, and I forget to plug it in. So I might forget to plug it in one day and the next day. And the third day, that's about as far as I can go if I'm just going to work and back. Fortunately, one of our businesses, Frost River, they're an outdoor gear manufacturer in Lincoln Park. They've actually put in a couple of chargers. It's a block from my office. So it works really, really well if I have been forgetful to be able to just kind of pull into their parking lot and park my car there. I've only had to do that twice. Again, from the forgetful point of view, I need, as more and more people are going to need those charging locations, I need to get better at remembering that I've plugged it in at Frost River, because I have had one day where I walk out at the end of the day and my car isn't where I normally park it. And then I realized that I actually had been using the EV, parking spot all day long, and I really didn't need to be doing that. So I'm a very kind of just pragmatic car driver. It is very easy. I love not having to go to gas stations. I love eventually being able to get to a point in which it is powered via renewables. And one of the things about my car that I didn't have previously, and this is what we think about, like with cars, we want them to be comfortable. And it has heated seats and a heating steering wheel that are, really instantaneous. And, it's cold enough down in the cities, but up in Duluth, when you get that day and you can turn those things on and it's instantaneous and you can still drive your car. And to me, it's very comfortable, quiet, and convenient.
Jody, I feel like we're on the same car journey, because I have a 2008 Prius with a backup camera that I'm driving into the ground and would love used EVs. So I hear what you're saying. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
I once heard that in New York, they brag about how new your car is. And in the Midwest, it's how many hundreds of thousands of miles you've accomplished.
Yeah.
And it's just my personality. What can I say?
You know what? I'm at 210,000 and going strong.
Yeah.
But
Although
I'm looking for it.
Now drooling over Brian and Karen's car. So just
well, maybe I'll let you cut the line for the Q&A with them. And now I think we're ready to talk to Heather, if Heather is ready for us.
I don't think
Heather.
you guys are really ready for me, but my name is Heather Huffman, and I'm from Sleepy Eye, Minnesota, which is the big city that Laura Ingalls and her family would traverse to back in the day, and we're home of 1919 root beer. I got my PHEV, which is a Chrysler Pacifica. I got that this fall. We needed another vehicle, and I'm very energy aware and very environmentally aware, and I have 4 kids. I didn't want some gas guzzling big thing going down the road. That's just not me. And vans don't really get that great of gas mileage either. Like I was getting about 19 with my old Dodge van that I had. So I didn't think I'd ever get a new vehicle in my life. I didn't plan on getting a new vehicle. That's not really how I roll either. I'm not a big vehicle person because you drive it off a lot, it loses value. But looking at this and all that it had to offer, and with the $7,500 tax credit that we were able to get, it was just a no-brainer. Because this will go about 32 miles on the electric, and the gas mileage is about 30 miles to the gallon, which is great for a van, a big family vehicle. What else do you need to know? I love the get up and go that it has. I thought that it would cruise that it would go faster with the gas, but it actually has more get up and go with the electric, which is very interesting. I drive, oh, here comes the dog. I drive, I've been using it, put about 10,000 miles on so far, because I do have kids and activities and we're driving all over the place. And I have put on it's about 60% electric and the rest is gas mileage. I drive to work 15 minutes or 15 miles. So a lot of times I can do it. I have enough mileage that I need. And then I have a level 2 charger, which we have set up. Yeah, my garage is messy, my van is messy, but that's just life. And in 2 hours I can charge my vehicle back up, and it's so handy. And so we had to put a separate panel in just because our box downstairs was full, but usually it's not that big of a deal to put that in. And we were the first one in our county to get one through our Brown County REA, which is part of Great River Energy. And they have an awesome program. So we were able to get our level 2 charger for about $100. And I think it's retailed for maybe $800-900. And they also upgrade our energy that we use to win energy. So we pay the same that we would pay if we're using, traditional energy, but they upgrade us to win energy, and that's through their Revolt program, and so that our carbon footprint is even less. So that's just kind of a fun, cool extra. So I'm hoping to see more. I don't see a whole lot of electric vehicles. I mean, we do have, like, Springfield is a neighboring town. They put an awesome free charging station in. New Ulm has an awesome free charging station. So I'm hoping we'll see more and more of these around, because to me, it's a no-brainer. I love the instant heated steering wheel and seat too. I've never had any of those things before. So it's been great.
Awesome. Thank you, Heather. And now, did you say Pipestone or Sleepy Eye?
Sleepy Eye.
Sleepy Eye, got it. Okay. Well, I grew up in Tracy, so I'm from your neck of the woods, kind of. So now I think it's time to move on to the Q&A. So I'm going to put the screen back so everyone attending should be able to see everyone talking. And I want to start with a charging specific question. So Yucca, this one might be targeted toward you first, but then maybe folks who've had experience working with their utilities can take it from there. So John says, how can I get Xcel Energy to respond to my request to install a home charger? Is there a backlog, Yucca, that I'm not aware of?
Well, Xcel Energy is seeing really fast growth in this area, both here and Colorado. And when, let's say 5 years ago, they maybe had 1 or 1.5 people working at Xcel with EVs. Now they are hiring people left and right to their EV team. I think the last thing I saw, there was they were looking for 5 new people to their team. So they're clearly having a lot of requests from people now because the sales are increasing and people have a lot of questions. And this is what we have kind of tried to do is auto dealers are experts in selling the cars, and then utility companies are experts in what happens in people's garages and with electricity. So therefore, we are kind of hoping that utility companies are taking the role of helping everybody in that, because they have vested interest in this one. So, and we are seeing that. When it comes to Xcel, they have their email address is electricvehicles@xcel.com. So you can just send an email there. And if you don't get a respond, start calling to their customer service line and buck them through that way. then just make sure that they hear you. You tell what your case is, what you need from them, and what you need to understand. To get the basic information from all the utility companies, we actually have a website called mncharging.org. So Joe, if you can
I'm
pop
getting the
that
link.
into the chat.
Yep.
Excellent. And that is designed so that everybody, no matter what's your utility company, can find your utility resources. So just go to mncharging.org, click the list there of all the utility companies, choose your own utility company, and it takes you directly to the utility company's resource pages. So that's where you can find more information. And many of these, especially the bigger utilities, are starting to have a lot of EV information on their site. So they are extremely good resources overall. And then the rate structures and information about these charging, and like Heather told about the different programs that they have and everything. So yeah, that's the way. But only way, of course, to get their attention is if they don't respond, keep bugging them.
So does any of our panelists have experience working with their utility beyond what we already discussed to get your EV charger in that you'd like to share? Well, early adopters, you guys weren't, you didn't have like the weight that they have now, but it's encouraging to know that they're hiring staff, and I'm sure that other utilities are ramping up as well. So now, looking ahead to summer and road trips where they're safe and staying where they're safe, I have a question from Matthews specifically about taking trips to Greater Minnesota. But Matthews has found that few hotel brands have L2 chargers on site. So what is the current state of play and prospect for enlisting large hospitality companies into the EV charging ecosystem? Yucca, do you want to talk a little bit about what your, or maybe Lisa, you could take this one, about what you know is happening in the hospitality industry with EVs, but then maybe some folks on the call would be willing to talk about how they've chased down charging for overnight trips.
Yeah, sorry. There are a lot of, with the MPCA corridor work, they're filling in a lot of the gaps throughout the state of Minnesota. They're not necessarily always looking at hotels, but I know a lot of the different manufacturers kind of specialize with different vendors. One company that we work with specifically does hotels. I was going to look up before this meeting here and did not have a chance, but the Alternative Fuel Data Center, AFDC, has a great listing of all the charging stations nationwide, and they also have the capability of road tripping the route. So you can say, I want to go within 2 miles or 5 miles. I'm willing to go off my route and find me charging stations along there. It's definitely a work in progress. As you know, Tesla has a specific destination charging program where they typically put charging in, and that's good for the charger, for the Tesla group, but for the rest of us, we're still checking our routes.
And that's a very good point. The hotels are a very valuable place to charge. EV owners, when they do any longer trips nowadays, that's how they choose their hotels. I don't stay in a hotel if it doesn't provide me charging, if there's any options in a neighborhood where I could choose. So I have gone to South Dakota to a conference, and a conference hotel didn't have a charging for me. I was like, sorry, I'll go to the next door there. They have charging for me. And that's where I stayed. So we as EV owners always like to request, if we go to town and we can call ahead and say, hey, do you have EV charging for me? Or if we go into hotel and we see that they have charging and that's why we have chosen it, I always remember to tell them that this is why I'm staying at your place, because you are providing charging for me. So it is a competitive advantage for those, way to differentiate themselves in the market. But more and more is definitely needed in this space.
Anyone want to add in, Brian?
Yeah, so we haven't mentioned it yet, but there's an app and website called plugshare, where you get everything from individual people's homes who put their own chargers on. This was more important in the old days, but now all of the level 2 and 3 chargers are on there, and it is a crowdsourced database in essence. So the data is really up to date. We took a trip driving trip with the Tesla to Branson, Missouri, and down and back, it's 900 miles or close to 900. We did in one day each way. And we just happened to, we didn't select it the way Yucca mentioned, but it just so happened that the place that we had found to stay at, kind of a timeshare, had a brand new charging station. So these things are being put in all the time. There were only about a half dozen in Branson, so we really lucked out. But it's like Yucca said, that's definitely a criterion when we choose. And when I plan a road trip, basically first map it out to find the supercharger route, and then sort of subdivide it. If it's multiple days, I'll find where we want to end the day, zero in on that. Usually a medium-sized metro is the best, and then find the hotels that have chargers.
Route planner.
Yeah, and another route planning tool is called a Better Route Planner, and that works for all EVs, not just Teslas. So that's how I found the charger for Karen going down to Rochester. But yeah, there's PlugShare.
And I chose there's actually, you can choose the amenities here.
Mm-hmm.
So you can choose lodging here.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that's why you don't see all the, if I turn that one off, we'll have much more stations there. But if I pick the lodging, it just picks the ones that are right by lodging or at the hotel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the tools are out there, and I think people are going to figure out pretty quickly. The hotel owners are going to figure out that this is a really a necessary amenity if they want to be competitive.
Perfect. Thank you. So now I have a few
Sorry,
questions.
I have one more. Heather
Yeah,
has
absolutely.
Heather has a hotel story to share.
I was going to chime in, but then
Yeah,
my
please.
husband and I, for our 20th anniversary this fall, we had just gotten the van and we head up to Duluth, and we had the most fun experience. We get to the hotel, premier parking because there's a charging station at the Holiday Inn there. And then when we did, the driving up north a little bit, and there was charging stations at all the parks where it was so busy, like everybody was so excited to get out because of COVID, and we got the premier charging spots, so we always had a parking spot. It was kind of fun. It's kind of like a treasure hunt.
I like that. That's a good tip. So a few questions about winter. So I'm going to start with Ken and Jean. They both ask, how do you do in cold weather? Like, does your owner satisfaction change at all as an EV owner and driver?
Maybe I would start with that one, simply because my satisfaction is much, much higher now. I had a Prius. I was concerned about what is winter going to be like, Duluth Hills, all of that kind of stuff. And the reality is it's a car. It drives like a car. You have the right tires on, it drives like a car. And the satisfaction is just the instantaneous heat that you can have compared to even with my Prius, really pulling the heat off of the engine in some situations. And then having things like a heated steering wheel and heated seats, you can't get any better. Winter driving is delightful now.
I would add, this is one of the low points with our vehicle. We have the base model of the Kia Niro PHEV. And while we only lose 2 miles in the winter, it goes from 26 to 24 when we pull out of the garage. We don't have heated seats. We don't have heated steering wheel, but the engine also kicks on with the colder weather. So even though we have the electric miles available to us for these short trips around town, the vehicle doesn't allow us to use them. So I would definitely recommend just getting a higher level than the base level for this particular manufacturer with the Kia Niro. But otherwise, it was excellent, like Jody said.
And I'm going to go ahead and mention what the item that didn't get any likes on the poll, But, we're all sitting here in our garages that are typically closed up in the winter. And something you should never try with your gasoline car, and I'm sure nobody does, but no problem pulling out your phone, opening up the app, and starting the heat on your car. Remote start is absolutely not a problem. Well, I don't know about the plug-in hybrids, how they work, but with a pure battery electric, especially when they're plugged in, you're basically heating it off of your electricity, and they heat up very quickly. 10 minutes, especially in a tight garage. And it's just something you can't do with a gas car. So that's a great benefit.
And I would say for my Chevy Bolt, really cold weather, a lot of rain, yes, it will cut my range, maybe more so than the Tesla. But I really don't care if I'm just driving it in the Twin Cities. I drive it across town. I drive it all day long and plug it in at home. So it doesn't really matter. If I was taking a road trip and it was really cold, I would have to stop more often with the Bolt. So.
Well,
With my van, since mine is a PHEV, I find that I'm fine just using the heated seats and the heating steering wheel. I don't actually need the heat from, like the air heat. And so then I'm able to use a lot more electric that way. So.
Yeah,
Cool.
and this is good that we are finally getting into this very important topic, heat pump heating. So as you heard from everyone here, it heats up faster, and that's a cool thing because you don't have to wait for the internal combustion engine to warm up anymore. The heat pump heating starts immediately and starts blowing warm air and hot air to your cabin. So they heat up faster, and as Brian and Karen mentioned there, you can also do it inside your cold garage because there's no emissions. So that's a good thing. So for example, when my wife was commuting to work, she just went into our cold garage 7:20 in the morning, and the car was waiting there. Interior was hot, her seat was hot, and even her steering wheel was hot. So it's pretty luxurious ride from there on with her for her. And then when she's at work and she's ready to leave work and go home, and it's a cold day outside, she can just take her cell phone and tell the car, "Could you please heat yourself up?" And 5 minutes after that, she can go to warm car again. So there's no need to drive with the cold car. That's old internal combustion engine technology. With EVs, you don't have to do that anymore.
Well, I think there's an important character building aspect of driving in a cold car that you're forgetting.
Oh, that's why you're keeping your Prius. I understand.
Makes me stronger. No, it doesn't. It makes me more miserable.
Did you see that letter to the editor that said the same thing?
Yeah.
What's called a camp mode too, where you can open up the back, especially in this kind of SUV shape. It's I'm 6'2". It's big enough for me to lie down in, and people put bedrolls in them, and you can set it up so that it keeps at the perfect temperature all night long. Doesn't use a lot of battery, and you can be on your way. We met a guy on the Branson trip who was driving from the East Coast to somewhere in the mountains out west. So
and sleeping in his car every night. And we were like, isn't it a little cold? And he said, well, of course he's using camp mode, so he's got heat on all night.
Wow, that's pretty fantastic.
And I just saw in one of the Facebook groups, someone was asking for suggestions where are the good places to go camping with Tesla or other EVs right now, because their kids wanted to go camping this weekend with the car. So that's kind of cool thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, that just reminded me one other great benefit and asset to these vehicles. Like you get the auxiliary power. My mom was on oxygen, and so she'd have a concentrator, and we'd be able to run the oxygen in the car on some trips, or we'd be stopping for lunch and she'd be able to power up versus always having to worry about having oxygen tanks too. So that was one benefit that really helped us a few years ago.
Wow, that's really great. Before we stop thinking about winter, Jim asks how much the cabin heat in the winter detracts from the vehicle range. So do folks here want to talk about their experience with losing range in the winter when you've got that heat cranked?
Well, generally, you lose some range from keeping the cabin warm, which you can offset if you want by turning the cabin heat down and just running your seats and your steering wheel, as other people have mentioned. But you actually lose more range simply because the battery chemistry gets less efficient. So the Bolt actually shows you the breakdown, if you will. It shows a pie chart of where the energy is going. But at the end of the Tesla does not. So all you know is that you're getting less range. And, you know, it's getting to the point where as long as you have enough range to get to the next charger, yeah, it's not as efficient, but there's enough charging around that you don't really, it's really more a matter of how far can I get and where am I going to charge when I get there? And it just plays into your planning. So the only difference is the distance you can travel is less. And once you get used to how the car is affected by the cold, and each car is a little bit different, then you just kind of automatically plan that in, and it just becomes second nature. So yeah, they lose a lot of range, but yeah, it's, you know, you just kind of take it in stride.
This is kind of the same thing as I mentioned about DC fast charging getting faster. The same happens here with the range, is that we used to talk still 5 years ago, we were talking about EVs like, well, okay, I don't know about the range yet. Range still, I mean, does it have enough? And at that time, the cars provided us about less than 100 miles or around 100 miles range roughly. Now, last year, average EV sold, full battery electric vehicle sold in the US had over 250 miles of range. So that is really usually not an issue. Like Karen said, she doesn't think about it in the wintertime. Maybe she loses 50 miles from her 260 miles of range, or 60 miles, or even 70 miles. It's probably not too often that you drive 200 miles a day. Average person in the US drives 37 miles a day. So this is becoming less and less of an issue. And of course, those who range is important and they need a lot of flexibility, then they can always choose the plug-in hybrids. Just like Lisa and Heather have done with their cars. You can still get most of your driving done with electricity, but you don't have to think about the range. So it depends on your own comfort level and your use case, and choose the cars based on that.
Yep.
All right, I've got a couple of electricity questions coming in from Ron. So first, how many amps for a 120 volt charger? Yucca, go.
Lower 8 and higher setup 12. Usually if people use it all the time, I would recommend using 8 because it taxes the outlet less. If you want to use 12 amps for your charging, then I would make sure that the outlet is very high quality and your wiring is in good shape too. So that would be the answer to that.
No other loads on the circuit.
Got it. So Ron's second question, and Lisa, I feel like you might be well equipped to answer this based on your anecdote that you shared. Are there 120 volt outlets in the vehicle?
Yes.
Okay, are they in all models, Yucca?
Not in all models, but there are more and more models that will be providing that. And there are some that are now coming out. Hyundai Ioniq 5, for example, where they have shown that you plug into your charging port, and then you can actually put their higher power equipment into that one. So then you can run a bigger equipment from your car. And these have a lot of power and they have a lot of capacity in our cars. I was just calculating that one of our EVs could power our household for 7 days without any problems. So that tells you how much energy there actually is if you would like to run some equipment. That's why camping mode is not an issue in a car. You can leave it heating, keep the heat up the whole night, because you just lose maybe 20 miles of range next day or something like that, and you're fine.
Excellent. Okay. Well, Lynn has a question about charging. So Per your pie chart, Yuka, 85% of charging happens at home, 10% at work, and 5% in the public. So what is driving people's behavior there? Why are they mostly charging at home? Is it because of convenience, or is it because there are no sufficient chargers in public areas?
Well, it's basically because home charging is the most convenient and the cheapest way to power your driving. You get lower rates during the night times from electric utility companies. So rather than if you are on an EV rate, you might get half of electricity overnight. Well, it doesn't cost you anything to drive electric with those pricing. So definitely you want to charge it at home. And convenience is really, as long as Jody remembers to do the plug it in, it takes her about 10 seconds to plug it in when she comes home. So it's not really an issue in that way. You just let it charge overnight. It's kind of like for our cell phones. There are public places where you could go and plug the cell phone in, but you're not gonna go there and try to find a public place where you plug your cell phone in. You just charge it at home during the nighttime usually, and then it's good for you.
Yeah, convenience is totally, you can't believe it until you experience it. It's like, I never have to go to a gas store again.
But if I wanted to charge at Hy-Vee, if I was running low, I was doing errands around town all day long, it's cold out, I need to charge. I mean, I'll just pull up to the charging station at Hy-Vee and get a little juice, enough to get me home.
And that is free, but it's less convenient. You know, we wouldn't drive to Hy-Vee just to charge our car, you know, because we'd have to sit there. So yeah, convenience trumps everything really in my mind.
I have stopped once to Hy-Vee to charge our older Nissan Leaf that you can see behind me there, that one, when it was just before Christmas time, and I had my brother and his wife with me, and we had been driving around the town the whole day, and I was like, oh, we could probably get home with this charge, but if we stop at the Hy-Vee, we can charge a little bit and go and do some shopping there at the same time. We went there, plugged the car in, 45 minutes later, Hy-Vee had probably provided us maybe 35 cents worth of electricity, which we valued at that point, and we had spent $130 at Hy-Vee. So everybody won. But that's exactly a good example of how these can be an attraction for customers too. And again, I wasn't thinking to go to Cub next door. I was going to Hy-Vee because they provided me charging.
There's
Yeah,
a charger at the Cub.
Sorry.
I was just going to say this is
Heather,
slightly
go.
off topic, but I remembered I wanted to share this, that so September, October, November, December, you know, I've had about 6-7 months of charging, and my monthly cost is about $35, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And I rarely go to the gas station. I do occasionally have to go to the gas station, but I feel like almost never compared to what I was doing before.
Mm-hmm.
So that actually, I think you just answered Jim's question, and maybe other folks want to chime in on this too. Given today's electric rates, what is the cost for fueling an EV? And Yuka, you mentioned 35 cents to get you home, and Heather, $35 a month. Does anyone else have an anecdote or story they want to share about how much you're paying to fill up, or like what your expectations were going in and how reality kind of shook out?
Yeah, typically with charge points, again, I use the charging stations to when I'm visiting parks and hiking and so forth. And I keep $10 on the charge card on the account RFID, and it lasts me usually 6 months. So I'll spend like $1 to $2 here or there, or 50 cents. So it's very minimal, if not free.
And at home, like we have solar, so we don't have time of use. So you can figure like 10 cents a kilowatt hour. We'll do a little bit of math here. And these cars can go, let's say 4 miles on a kilowatt hour. So to go 40 miles is $1. Is a kind of a way to think about it. So if you drive 40 miles a day, it's $1 a day.
And I think we've been talking a lot about home charging and the quantity of charging that happens at home, but I want to circle back and talk about how a lot of people are charging at apartments and condos that like maybe they don't have their own dedicated garage. And I know Yucca, you have been putting a lot of work over the past 5+ years into working with architects and developers to make sure that they plan to, in some ways, like future-proof their buildings for EVs, because multi-unit dwellings house a lot of people, especially in cities. And as more and more people adopt EVs, those buildings have to be ready to accommodate charging. So do you want to expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll say a couple of words about that. So definitely right now when I'm talking to architects or developers, I'm telling them pretty straightforward that if you are building something right now and you're not taking EV charging into account, you're building it wrong, period. Because someone else has to go there in a couple of years and retrofit that building for EV charging, and it's much more expensive to do at that point than what it would have been if they would have taken that into account initially. So there are ways to do that, and utility companies are fortunately also getting more, providing more help and resources on this one. So they are providing good programs for people in the near future here to help that. But it takes more stakeholder involvement. There has to be much more people involved in doing the planning process, figuring out what's fair for everyone, how should they do it. But good news, it's doable, and we will see it coming definitely. But it is a new amenity that all of these buildings will have to add. There's no question about it.
Well, and
Just
yeah,
to
go
add
ahead.
to that, there is a lot of policy and legislation in place in different parts of the country. LEED certification, they say, you know, for the highest levels, if you put in charging infrastructure or planning to, that gets you extra points in LEED certification. Parking lots are required to have 2 to 4% of their parking. So it really is becoming more and more common, especially with work that Yucca's done, that it keeps being in front of people's minds. And then we just received a project where we're going to be helping multi-unit dwelling with 25 low income and medium income to put in charging too. So it's coming.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't put in a plug for you. Yucca offers a continuing education course that he's been giving to mostly architectural firms up until this point. My friend who's an architect in Colorado actually attended it not that long ago, and she said she learned a lot. And in fact, you've been getting some feedback from architects and developers who have made changes to projects in progress due to what they heard. So keep that, everyone listening, in your back pocket as an opportunity for your workplace or any of your kind of colleagues going forward. Yucca's happy to present usually.
Yeah, and this is kind of highlights the thing that we have to do a lot of education, everyone. We have to be sharing good information for all of our colleagues and friends and relatives and everybody about EVs. And that's how we can move these things forward. So don't be shy. Just open up your mouth and tell about your experiences or tell about how you are considering buying an EV now and why you're doing
that. Yeah, I think too, we've got 7 minutes left. We've got 4 questions in the hopper, and I have a feeling a few more will come in. But I'm realizing we haven't talked about like the purchasing process or shopping yet. And I feel like in the past, that's been like a big point that we've discussed. So Mike asks a question about buying a used EV. Where are the good places to shop? So he's thinking a Bolt, but maybe a Tesla. So does anyone have any favorite stories from purchasing your EV, bonus points if it was used?
Okay, Brian and Karen, because you have both of those, what would you say right now?
Well, I just want to say, as far as a Bolt goes, right now the 2021 is actually cheaper than if you were to buy a used because of all the dealer incentives. And if you have a Costco membership, you can get $3,000 more off if you get, but that's only through tomorrow, I think.
Exactly. So, you have to be quick with that one, but you can still make it.
You'd have to buy it tomorrow.
And it's a best time to buy a car at the end of the month.
Yeah. So as far as used, Brian's had experience with getting used for a friend.
Yeah. So we bought both of these new. So that's not it. Tesla, you buy it from the company. You go online, you place your order. It's like buying something from Amazon, only simpler.
But
The
Kelly,
Bolt, we worked with a dealer in the East Metro. There's lots of great dealers, Chevy dealers selling Bolts. And now Ford has Mach-E's new, and VW has ID4s that they're starting to, and they're all starting to mimic Tesla's sales model too, where it's more of a fixed price, you order it directly from the company, and then the dealership is more of a facilitator in
but
completing the
he's
paperwork.
asking about used.
But used, yeah, I'll just do a shout out for a guy in Hopkins. His company is called GS Motors. And if you Google GS Motors, he is the one that people keep citing over and over again, as far as he gets Teslas, he gets Leafs, he gets Bolts, and a few other miscellaneous things, but he's strictly EV. And I think he might do mechanics too, doesn't he? Yucca?
Not really.
Not really? Okay. But he's very knowledgeable. So he's a great guy to go to. And then, yeah, I mean, just keep your eye out. I helped a buddy buy a used Tesla Model 3 from the Honda dealership down in Bloomington. So they are starting to be in the used market, just off of wholesale. So dealers buy cars at wholesale and they bring them in and they turn around and sell them. So Model 3s are definitely starting to come in. Certainly there are lots of Bolts and lots of used Leafs in the market. And then I would, again, put in a plug for the Minnesota EV owners group that Yucca mentioned earlier. If you join that group, takes a few minutes, and you say, I'm interested, you'll have 25 replies within an hour. I mean, it's just a phenomenal group. And it's not a sales site per se, but you can quickly take conversations offline after asking a question, and people are just really willing to help.
And sometimes people sell their cars there too when they are upgrading their car. They are posting it there, and there are good used deals too. I mean, just like Jody said, she just put $2,500 on top of her old car and sold that and moved into a new Leaf. So the Leaf that you can see behind me there, our Leaf, I paid $7,500 for that 2 years ago. And that one still has 84% of the battery capacity left. So I'm expecting that to last another 8 years in our use. And then driving, as said, 20 to 40 bucks a month. And very little maintenance needs. As long as you know how to put air in the tires and windshield wiper fluid, you're pretty far already with the EV maintenance items. So it is by far the cheapest way to drive, no question about it.
And Jillian chimes into that cars.com is a good place to shop for newer used EVs as well. So we have 4 questions. I want to get through them. We have 2 minutes. So let's all be on point here.
Lightning round.
Yeah, great. Okay. Do any of the EVs have automatic parallel parking?
Many of them do.
Okay, so I see yeses and no. So Jody, no for yours. Heather, yes for yours.
Yep.
All right.
No,
Brian and Karen.
Teslas do I think you need full self-driving though.
Okay, all right. Lisa?
No, definitely
No
not
for that
my
one.
base model.
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay. So, but that is a thing that some have.
Yep.
Is the upshot. All right, we took too long with that one. On to the next. Let's say, so Lynn says, let's say in 2025, when most people have shifted to all electric vehicles, do you think the way people charge will change as well? Well, it stands to reason that more charges will be in the ecosystem. So charging while shopping at the grocery store or at the doctor will probably be more widespread, but also there will be a lot more competition for those charging stations. Yuka, what do you think?
I'm thinking that home charging again is the main place where charging happens. So and people will have, and our battery technology is getting cheaper all the time. Ranges will get higher, so there's less need to charge outside of your home as long as you have a good home charging setup.
All right. So Dewey has kind of a philosophical question. Would you be willing to use an L2 charger at a location if you had to pay for the charging?
No.
No. Okay. But some yeses, some no. So really it's specific to the owner.
It depends on your situation. I'll give you an example. If I drive somewhere and I go to hotel and hotel says it's $5 a night for you to charge, I'm really happy to pay $5 for you. Great. It's not an issue in those cases. But at the same time, if I don't need the charging, of course, then I probably won't be paying for it.
Sure. Okay. Last question from Terry. Terry says, if I have a PHEV, what is the best way to sell it?
Start with the posting it in Minnesota EV Owners Group. We have 2,000 members. There are people who are looking for good cars for themselves, maybe their relatives, their friends, and other things that say, hey, I have this one. That's the first thing to start. And then Facebook Marketplace is another one where I would post it.
Perfect. You guys made it through the questions. Good job. The one thing that Yuka, you didn't add that I'm going to chime in here with in these remaining seconds is there is no right or wrong time to buy an EV. The market is changing fast and holding out for 2 years for this one model you heard is coming. Yuka gives this sermon a lot, so I won't take too much of your thunder here. But just buy it and then sell it in a couple of years. The used market is really good. Yuka, anything to add there?
I mean, sooner you can start driving electric, more you will enjoy it. That's how it is. And there's no reason why not to go that direction already. Don't wait for the car to die. If you can still get some money from it, sell it and then get electric.
Yuka, I feel like that one was personally directed at me.
I didn't look at you.
Quick reminder too, I can't help but say, as an employee of the American Lung Association, air pollution is the single largest source of emissions is the single largest source of air pollution. So the sooner people change over to electric vehicles, it's going to have a big impact on the air quality in Minnesota. We just had the state of the air report come out, and while we did get pretty good grades for our region, we are on the edge of going into attainment. And when that happens, there's more fines and fees and regulations put in place. So just changing your habits and driving makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
And I would just say we're in the Lincoln Park neighborhood of Duluth. Absolutely love it. Stop by for our craft brews and ciders and all of that. But we host what's called the Twin Ports Interchange, or Can of Worms. There's so much concrete and transportation there that our neighborhood, 3,000 residents in this one census tract, are surrounded by 1.6% of the bridge surfaces from the entire state of Minnesota. And it won't surprise you that as these residents have that transportation and air quality burden, that they have really poor respiratory health and actually have a life expectancy variance of 20 years less than other areas of our community. And you know what? 1 in 3 of those households don't have access to a vehicle. So you're driving through our neighborhood, and the people that are bearing the burden are the ones that right now aren't necessarily in the position to buy electric vehicles. So if you do it, it's going to help everyone.
Absolutely. Any last words, any tidbits folks missed getting in there? This is your final shot. We're 3 minutes over, so I'm being generous here.
I think Jody and Lisa closed it very nicely here. So I think
Perfect.
we better leave it to that. That is very important thing for us to keep in mind.
All right, leave them wanting more. Thank you, everyone. Have a really fantastic evening. Thank you for being here. And thank you so much to our panelists for joining us from their garages. It's much warmer today than it was when we did this in October with some other panelists. So you guys lucked out. And with that, I'm going to end the meeting and have a great night, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.